Thank you so much, Nkatha, and I'd like to thank all our speakers for sharing with us the lovely work that they're doing and the opportunities they see, the future that they envision moving forward. It's been really inspiring to learn from that. So we'll move on right next to the panel. And in this panel, like Nkatha has said, that we're going to be talking about what's the way forward. We have seen this, this is what faith communities are doing. We have seen these are the challenges, these are the opportunities, this is the support that they require. So what's next? How can we move on? Because the faith-based approach has a great potential. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have joining us today 3 amazing panelists. We were supposed to have one, but one has another one, but he has not managed to join. So that is Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. But with us, we have Madam Sujata, Dr. Alan Chana, and Ms. Mika Bono-Cheng. And they are going to provide different perspectives. Madam Sujata will provide a perspective from as a faith leader. Dr. Alan will provide it from a perspective of someone who has been implementing various activities with faith groups and faith communities in Africa. So, and Miss Mika Bono-Cheng, who's going to be talking about it from a perspective of a researcher and who has been engaging in a faith-based approach. So welcome to everyone. So I'll start with Madam Sujata. If you can all turn on our cameras, all the different panelists who are here. So we'll start with Madam Sujata, who is, if I can just give a brief introduction. She is currently the chair lady of Environment and Climate Change Commission at the Interreligious Council of Kenya, where she's an executive member as well. She's the National General Secretary since 2008 of the Hindu Council of Kenya, and she was appointed by the President to be a member of the Interfaith Council to address the reopening of faith worship places after the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Madam Sujata, if you're there.
Yes, Laura. Yes, I'm here.
Yes. I just want to pose to you several questions. And first of all, being, we have heard from the perspective of Christians, from Muslims. So we just want to know, as a representative from the Hindu Council of Kenya, could you please share with us a few examples of some of the restoration initiatives that you have engaged in as a community and how Hinduism supports restoration? And then you could also share about how you describe, we have been talking about faith-based approach to restoration. So can you also just touch on how effective and influential such approaches could be?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And let me greet in our Hindu way, Namaste. Namaste to all. And very good presentations with the Muslims and the Christians. As Hindus also,
Are you able to turn on your video, Madam Sujata?
I'm just worried about the
bandwidth. No problem.
And I can put my video on.
Okay.
As Hindus, we are strong believers of the nature. And Hindus, we participate in any activity related to improving the Mother Earth and the nature. Landscape restoration is one of the activity. Some of the examples we do as a Hindu council, we are the umbrella body for 170 institutions all over the Kenya. But any organizations we have for this environment and climate change, we have a wing to protect our environment. Any function is there, any activity is there, we'll start with the tree plantation. Even recently in Hindu Council, we done, because of our Diwali, we have done big mega donation drive and the Hindu prayers. That time for each guest, we gave 2 seedlings to plant them and nurture them and to grow them. So any activity, then we'll go to the schools. We give them mostly fruit seedlings because the school, we give the students take the responsibility to grow, to plant and grow and nurture the tree plantation, so that we are giving the responsibility to the students. And also what we do, we say it is protecting the environment is the dharma. If I translate in English, it is a duty. Dharma means duty, to protect our environment. And we say the earth is as a goddess, and to protect, and goddess, and is also the mother. So the mother deserves our devotion and protection. So many Hindu rituals, women benefit from the earth and offer the gratitude and protection is our response. Many Hindus, they touch the floor before getting out of the bed every morning and ask the mother to forgive them for trampling on her body. That about our Hinduism to protect our earth. So we believe that the whole world is one family. We say Vasudevaka Kutumbakam. So we have only one earth, one sun, and one moon, and one human race. As a responsible human beings, we are intelligent. It is our collective responsibility. Irrespective of faith we must all focus our efforts and energies in restoring of the forest and the landscape. Every faith-based organizations should do their part of supporting and encouraging the land restoration and forestation. Thank you, Lara.
You're very welcome, Madam Sujata. I think just to add on that, I think we'd really like to know now how effective you think such kind of approaches could be, and also based on your experience now working in an Interreligious Council of Kenya, what do you think, or maybe what do you think actors who need to understand about faith communities before approaching them? Because here we have our audience is made up of people from various sectors. They're not only faith community, of course, yes, they belong to various faith congregants or faith communities, but we have researchers, we have public civil servants, people working for the public sector, and they might really have been impressed by the work that various communities are doing. So that I think it's important for them to understand, what do they need to do? What do they need to understand about faith communities before approaching them to collaborate on restoration? And how do you think is the best way for them to do that?
Laura, if you see our country now, presently, we are having the severe drought. Why this drought is happening is one of the main reason is the deforestation. Why deforestation is happening? And we just sell the charcoal, how the charcoal is coming. So the awareness, we should give that awareness. If you cut the tree only for the simple charcoal, what is happening? Now the drought, and unexpected rains, unexpected cold, the climate is changing. Why? That awareness we should give. All the religious bodies in the Interreligious Council, we conduct many webinars to give awareness to the people. Now the people, they want to burn this taka, and they put some plastic also there, and they're burning. That gases are very, very dangerous to the human bodies. So this awareness we have to create. This drought, we are many animals also dying. There is no water. Why? So that awareness we have to create. And it is our minimum responsibility to protect our Mother Earth. How? So how the water, even the plastic, you can see the rivers. And everywhere this is the plastic, the wastage is there. And even this e-wastage nowadays, we buy the laptops, computers, even these phones, we change, and the cables, we'll just throw it. What is happening? So the e-wastage, with the e-wastage, we can generate some employment to the youth. We can use this e-waste into useful products. These are the things we have to do it, and give the awareness to each from the schools. From the 3 years, I saw this one presentation, 3 years boy is planting a tree, to give that responsibility to each citizen. They should understand why it is happening, why the drought. This is the beautiful country. Now this severe drought is we are facing. And now we can see everywhere now arboretum. Now, I don't know, from few years, we just see the concrete forest there. Arboretum will maybe disappear. And Karura forest is slowly without for the small charcoal. We are using the big trees. And so much of the protection that the trees are giving us, even the oxygen. We are getting so much of oxygen from the trees. Everything is disappearing. So you have to give this information to our citizens. The awareness, maybe they don't know, they're just cutting the tree for the charcoal. Maybe they're just throwing the plastic. So they don't know. So the buildings are coming. How the buildings are coming? Why they're cutting the trees? Our responsibility to teach them. Even when we go to the religious places, they should talk about these things. They are very important. These things are many people, they don't know. The small children just they throw that the whatever we are not using these mobiles, they're just throwing it. So why it is happening? The drought is why it is happening. They should understand deep the root causes of these things. People should understand. And the water, even it is a small, even at home, the water we are just wasting. And we wash every day the clothes. There is no need to wash the clothes every day. That use the soap. It is very dangerous to the soil and the gases. You can use maybe after every 3 days or every 1 week. And the water we are using, the kitchen water, we can put it in the garden, rain harvesting. In the schools, we have to teach them rain harvesting. The people, they don't know, the rain comes, where catching points are there, the water. So much of when rain comes, we don't know how to harvest that water. These things we have to tell, not only planting and growing and nurturing them. So everything we have to do it. Even because this country, 85% or maybe 90% are the religious people. We should only the religious leaders to come forward and tell them these are very important things. Even the fossil fuel, we have to use the cow dung. We instead of the wood fire, we can use the cow dung. How to use the waste management, everything we have to come and tell these things. Yes, Laura. Maybe I'm a bit emotional. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfectly okay, because this is quite a serious issue, and unless we take it seriously, then we'll have no change. So thank you so much, Madam Sujata, for sharing with us the work that the Hindu Council is doing, for sharing with us how we can actually engage in now promoting the message of restoration within the faith communities in the various, maybe the meetings that they have and so on. And I'd just like to add that I've seen a comment in the chat where they've said that as the Hindu Council of Kenya, you've done tree planting twice a year since 2005, and you've planted more than 187,000 seedlings, which 92%.
Yes, if Diwali comes, every activity we do, every festival we do the tree plantation. We have the wing of the environment and climate change. So we do it with 170 organizations. We do the tree plantation. We are very active in the tree plantation all over the Kenya.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Sujata.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much for your input. So we'll now move on to Sheikh Ibrahim, who has been able to join the panel. Sheikh Ibrahim, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. I hope you're hearing me all the way from the island of Zanzibar.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So are you able to turn on your camera so that people can see you?
Yeah, it's saying I'm not allowed. It's saying you can't start your, because the host has stopped it. It is from your end, Laura. You can do it from your end.
Okay. Yes, sure. But thank you so much for creating the time to join us despite your being quite far away. I think you can be able to change, but to turn your video on, but in case I'm not able to do that from my end, but I think we can move on in the interest of time. Okay. I just wanted to get your opinion. Oh yes, I've not introduced you. Sorry about that. So Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome Asmani is a Secretary General of the Sustainable Conflict Resolution Center for Sustainable Conflict Resolution. He's a legal advisor to the Supreme Council of Kenya, a member of the Jamia Mosque Nairobi, and the chair of BRAVE, Building Resilience Against Violence Extremism Reference Committee, which is a Muslim interfaith movement to counter religious narratives used to radicalize youth in violent extremism. He's also a member of the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya and a board member of the Green Faith Movement, which is an international faith-based organization that uses religion to advocate for the protection of our environment. So, Sheikh, could you kindly just let us know about what, in your opinion, what do you think is the best way of integrating restoration in now what the Islamic community is doing, even what other communities are doing, faith communities are doing. And what do you think? You know, we're here talking about how we can transfer knowledge to faith communities, and Madam Sujata mentioned how you're doing webinars. Do you have other ideas on now what's the best? You know, some people may not have access to maybe internet, or they're not really conversant with technologies, but what do you think is the best way of sharing knowledge on restoration with faith communities? So those are two questions. What do you think is the best of integrating restoration in your communities, that's the Islamic communities activities, and what you think is the best of sharing knowledge on restoration with faith communities in general?
Yeah. So thank you very much. As I said, for me, I am a believer of the fact that religion is not just about preparing ourselves to go to heaven. Religion is also about playing our rightful role in this world, make this world a better place like God expected us to do before we go to heaven. So in short, what we need to do is, first of all, remember that we have a duty. God Almighty created us. God Almighty created all what is in this world and gave us the responsibility of being the steward. Just saying that what we need to do is to remind people that religion is not just about going to heaven, but also, and I believe, because having been a member of the interfaith group that deals with the environment under the able chairmanship of Madam Sujata, what we tell people is that we have a duty as religious communities, and this is a godly and a spiritual responsibility of making sure that we are the stewards of the environment. God Almighty has created this world and given us the responsibility. I keep on reminding my fellow Muslims that in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 30, God Almighty says, telling the angels, I have created on earth the human being and have made him my vicegerent, my steward, my representative on earth, to make this world a better place. So for me, what we need to do is to mainstream protection of the environment in our religious teachings, because that is how it is supposed to be. So we have all these platforms, the religious platforms that we have, places of worship and other religious institutions. What we need to do as we prepare people, we keep on talking to people about worship, prepare yourself to go to a better place, a good place in heaven. We need to tell them that you can only earn that place if you play your rightful role in this world, which includes ensuring that we use what God has given us, the resources that God has given us, we use them in accordance with the teachings of the religion. And this cuts across all the religions. When I'm when I am participating in an interfaith forum talking about the environment, the question I pose, Laura, is this: when you look at the tree outside where you are now, is that tree a Christian tree? Is it a Muslim? Is it a Hindu? And the answer that you'll get is that that tree is just a tree created by God Almighty to serve humanity. And all of us have a duty to protect that, to protect the environment. And some of the things some of the problems that we are encountering as human beings is because of what we are doing as human beings. In the Quran, we are told that corruption has become apparent in the sea and on land because of what we have done with our own hands. So we need to reverse that by encouraging people that restoring the environment, protecting the environment is part of worship. Like in Islam, we are told a person is cursed who pollutes a water mass or goes to relieve themselves in a place where people are walking or even moving, where people are using as a place to rest the rest. We are also told that planting a tree from which either an animal will feed or a bird will feed, then, or a human being will feed on it or sit under its shade, then that is considered as an act of charity in Islam. It's considered as an act of charity. So for me, we just need to mainstream protection of the environment in our daily preachings in our mosques. The way through which you can communicate, because as you said, we need to appreciate there are limitations. When you talk about using the webinar and the rest, there are people who are limited to that. So how can we convey this information to the faith communities? For me, it is first of all building the capacity of the faith leaders, because these are the credible voices that the faith communities listen to. We need to build their capacity and also ride on the available platforms that are there. Like for the Muslims, we have the mosque. For the Christian, we have the churches. For the Hindus, we have the temples and other places. So we can use that. We also have media houses that are owned by faith communities. We can use those faith media houses or media platforms through which we can reach to a large number of faith communities that listen to them. So for me, that is all I would like to say now, unless maybe Laura, you want a further clarification or further explanation. Thank you.
No, I think you've really covered everything quite clearly and very simply, and it's really and it was really good just hearing your ideas on how you think we can now move it forward and integrate it better, because like you said, a tree outside my window is not Christian or Muslim, so maybe we should now, it's all our responsibility. So we should all engage in it despite the various faiths that we come from. So thank you so much, Sheikh, for joining us. I know you have a quite busy schedule. You mentioned that you're facilitating a training in Zanzibar. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insights on how we can integrate it better, leveraging on the faith leaders, building their capacity, and now going to the churches, to the mosque, to the various religious where the various religions or various faiths meet. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Laura, and allow me now to move away. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. So we have our second last panelist. That is Dr. Alan Chana. Dr. Alan Chana is, I think he describes himself. I think the best way to describe him is that he's an environment, peace building and communication specialist, and he's the co-director of the Summer Academy on Climate, Land and Security, which is a collaboration between the Geneva Center for Security Policy Initiatives of Change, Switzerland, and Triple Capital. So he has experience working with various faith communities in various contexts, and also with several international organizations such as ICRAF, Global Evergreening Alliance, and UNDP. So welcome, Alan.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you so much. What an amazing webinar we've had today. Anyway, I think you have a question, sorry.
No problem. Thank you too. Thank you for joining and taking part in the organization. So Alan, you know, you have a lot of experience in implementing faith-based approaches for various purposes, such as peace, for conflict resolution, and also that includes environmental stewardship, and now in this case, landscape restoration. So what insights can you share with us on the subject of faith-based approaches to landscape restoration? What does someone need to have in mind before they embark on such an approach? And how can they integrate such kind of an approach when they're working on landscape restoration?
I think, I mean, the webinar today is evidence of the incredible richness, you know, the energy, the commitment, the vision, the community reach, and the moral influence of faith communities. I think it was Ruth Gitahi summed it up when she said, you know, life in abundance is what we exist for. And, you know, Anthony Blaise was saying, we have to choose restoration. I mean, you know, communities that are saying this, it's very powerful. And when, like with this link up here with ICRAF and Regreening Africa and the restoration scientific community in a synergy, it becomes a very, very powerful influence to safeguard our world, you know, and quite a responsibility. But I think with that, they say that, you know, with that power comes responsibility. I think and there are emotive things going on here. I mean, David from Sinessa pointed out how emotive land is in itself. Land issues are emotive. Religion, I think we can all know, religion is emotive. So now we're mixing them up and we're doing interfaith. We have, these are, I mean, it's an incredible interfaith platform in itself. You see Muslims, Christians, Hindus working together with a shared vision in a way which in some other sectors, you may not see that in the same kind of strength of collaboration. So I think in terms of one kind of need, and this is maybe why this has been working, because it has, as I was referencing the Wazee who were kind of at the founding of this. I mean, Reverend Kobia is the former General Secretary of the World Council of Churches. So there's a lot of actual behind the scenes wisdom of how this thing can come to birth, how it can move. Then, you know, we've got the restoration community of world class. When we're going to hear from Mika, you know, this EU-funded, multi-country restoration programs, all the experience that needs to do that. So this is a very synergistic thing. But just to share that, I think one hope coming out of this, Laura, is that we really have we strengthen the coordination and having like a working group around this where we consolidate these different expertises into a working group and into a coordinating group that really helps to steer all this energy forward, so that we can get that cohesion and that critical mass of all these amazing initiatives coming together, and then maybe we have a chance to solve these terrible challenges that we're facing. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Alan. I'll now move on to the last panelist, that's Mika Bonner-Ching. Welcome, Mika. So Mika is currently the manager of the Regreening Africa program, which is a program under the Center for International Forest Research and ICRAF, and it aims to regenerate land in 8 sub-Saharan countries from Ethiopia to Senegal. She also co-developed a stakeholder approach for risk-informed and evidence-based decision-making that's shared, which is a demand-driven, tailored, and interactive engagement for co-negotiation of decisions for mutually agreed actions or outcomes. So Mika has over 15 years experience working on various topics such as natural resource management and working in the global tropics with a focus on Africa and also Australia. So welcome, Mika. I hope you can hear us.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and for bringing that faith-based perspective to this panel. The research perspective. So I think the question that we have for you today is now, how do you think research can support faith-based institutions in restoration? You can cite some examples based on maybe the work and your experience with the Regreening Africa program and other programs as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. And really, I've really enjoyed the last 3 hours. Such incredible examples, cases from restoration led by different faith communities, as well as statements about the caring for nature and the protection of nature from these different perspectives. And I think it's really critical. So I just wanted to give a tiny little bit of background. Regreening Africa obviously is involved in this movement by supporting the creation of these different action groups coming out of the scaling conference that we had last year. But Regreening Africa is doing that because it believes that it takes everybody. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration across all different types. It takes government, civil society, faith leaders, researchers, donors to come together to achieve what are very, very big ambitions against very, very big challenges that we have in terms of degraded landscape in Kenya and across Africa. And so I'm really passionate about the role of faith leaders because I think that is one of the areas that's not been brought in sufficiently into this dialogue. You can see from today, there is so much passion. There are so many good examples to be scaled. Regreening Africa, being funded by the European Union, is almost coming to a close in this current phase, but it really has tried to focus on not just trying to scale like a project, but think a little bit broader. How do we create movements? What is needed to support all of these different groups and people that want to work positively to be able to achieve the best that they can? So from a research perspective, because I work at C4 ICRAF, many people would know ICRAF or World Agroforestry in Nairobi, Kenya. And from a research perspective, I think there are a few key elements, probably 3 key areas that research can really contribute to the role of faith-based communities in restoration. And I'll draw some examples from Regreening Africa and others. So these three key areas are capacity, skills and knowledge, monitoring, and also researching what is happening in the restoration space and bringing that knowledge back into the planning and implementation. So if we look at the capacity building dimension, we know that there is a lot of local knowledge around landscape restoration. There's a lot of collective knowledge from civil society, community, NGOs, groups working on landscape restoration. But we also know that there is scientific information, and we can bring all of that together to inform future restoration initiatives. There is also the capacity to bring different people with different knowledge to provide capacity building. And through this movement on landscape restoration in Kenya, there's the development of a capacity strengthening program that's already been launched and has started with some of its activities, looking at youth, women, and particularly faith-based communities. And so within that, we have different dimensions, all the way from resource mobilization to communication, social media, looking at gender integration, monitoring, and also the knowledge that we have amongst all of us on restoration that can be shared. From a research perspective, we've spent a lot of time at World Agroforestry looking at obviously agroforestry, so the integration of trees within these landscapes, but really trying to focus on the right tree in the right place for the right purpose. So not just going there and planting millions of trees that could die because there's no one to water them, or that are the wrong trees and maybe are not going to produce products that people need, or are too close to a waterway and could suck that water. So bringing that knowledge, and I think that would be my call to this group, how do we work together to collectively develop a restoration guide with faith-based messages that can be used across all of the different faith communities for restoration? And I think that's a really critical element to bring together. The second dimension is around monitoring. We've already brought the Regreening Africa app to some of the different groups and some trainings to really put the power to monitor the work that these communities are doing into their hands, developing tools that they can monitor the work that's taking place on the ground, and then also be able to have access to that data, to be able to use this to really show the contribution of faith communities to restoration in the country. And I saw in the chat someone asked about policy. By showing the work that's happening and the potential and the opportunity, that can also have an influence on the policy dimension. And the last area that I'd like to touch on is around research. We know that there is a lot of experience at local level, but it is always positive to be able to track the changes that are taking place. We have the best of intentions. Can we also understand when we're trying to do restoration, who's benefiting, what type of impacts it's having, so that we can learn from our past efforts, see what has worked and scale that, and see where maybe things have not been successful and share those challenges. And so looking at understanding the processes and then integrating that knowledge that we collect collaboratively, so local knowledge, scientific knowledge, bringing that knowledge to inform future planning and implementation for restoration. So those three areas are really around capacity, bringing knowledge into the faith communities, supporting on monitoring, research and integration of evidence. And my call to this group is, let's work collectively through the leadership of this faith-based action group that has formed to develop some sort of guidance that can be used across different faith communities to really demonstrate how to do restoration well and the different faith statements that support restoration in the country. So back to you, Laura. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mika, and thank you for mentioning those three key items. And I think now the challenge that I can pose to the participants who are trained on the Regreening Africa app is for us to present something during the conference that's coming up later this month on the 24th and 25th of November. So you received the training, and we'd love to see what you're doing, because it's really important to monitor, just to monitor and show people this is what we've done, this is the progress we've made, this is the impact we've made, and the app really helps to do that. So if we can do that by the time we're doing the conference, that would be great. And of course, if you're here, yes, thank you so much, Mika, for sharing the link to the conference on the Regreening Africa website. And I think just to continue on that point, just briefly, that Mika was making on monitoring, is that I think from the presentations, we saw that financial support is required. So when you require support, when someone funds and if you're looking for donors, it's really important to be able to show them that this is the work that I'm doing, this is the impact that I'm having. And it's not, I'm not just saying that I'm doing this and not doing it at all. So thank you so much, Mika, and thank you to all our panelists. I think Sheikh Ibrahim left, but Madam Sujata is still here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mika. Thank you, Alan. And just before I hand over to the team that's doing the closing remarks, I'd just like to add that this has been really a great session, and that this webinar is part of a bigger conference. It's part of the conference, the Kenya National Landscape Restoration Scaling Conference. It was one of the thematic webinars. So we had the conference last year, we had the action groups which were formed around the various themes, one being this action group that has organized this webinar on the faith-based restoration action group. And now this year we decided to do a series of pre-thematic webinars as well, and this was one of them. So the outcomes of this webinar will be presented during the conference, the main session that's on the 24th, the 25th of November, but also 24th is the day of the conference. You can come and see how to engage with the county governments. You know, this is about partnerships, it's about movement building. So it's important for us as faith communities or representatives of faith communities to be present at such kind of forums where governors, where directors of county, of environment and maybe agriculture are talking about the plans they have at a county level, because now we know that all the financing has been decentralized to the county level. So I'd like to welcome you all to take part in the conference. And thank you so much, Mika, for sharing all the details there.